Whoa!
All right.
Here we are. We're on.
Love and hugs here.
Loving hugs, everybody.
CCTV, July 10th, 2024. My name is Sarah. I am here with the lovely Michael Koran, and we are at AHA, A Human Among Human.
Yes. Wow.
And we are here to discuss life, love, and whatever else comes up.
Yes, I had plans, different ones, but we can start with that. So you've come a long way, both of us. I've known Michelle for over 14 years, and she left me more times than I think any woman in human history. Because she was 24 years younger and wanted to meet someone closer to her age. But only I knew how wonderful she was. And she had a relationship that didn't work. And she eventually said, I don't want you to die alone. I'd like to move in. Which is maybe not the most romantic. But I said yes. I had no choice. I actually had no choice. It was a no-brainer, alas. And I don't think you have this challenge. Because of my beloved mother, I had in me difficult attitudes toward women.
Tell me why because of that. What was the pattern?
Well, being hit, sexually abused,
Oh gosh.
screamed at, and force-fed when you were around 5 days old. It's definitely has an impact.
Definitely.
And so you don't even know these things, most people. I didn't know I hated women and was terrified of them. And the way I handled it was to be controlling. Let me tell you what's wrong with you. My wife made my beloved first wife, poor Robbie. Lucky Robbie, too. We had a wonderful 8.5 years, including 2 years of marriage. But I was not skillful enough to live with a woman or be married with one.
You did not live with her before you got married to her.
We did not live together, but I was there 7 nights a week. It wasn't our home. She had a son, which is challenging.
Did you have the son full time?
Most of the time. And she, as is appropriate, loved her son.
Her son was how old?
Beginning at 7
Oh, wow.
and to 15.
Yeah, for 8 years.
Yeah, 8.5 years, actually.
Wow. That is young. 7 is very young.
And I knew even less than I know now. And some part of me was bothered that she loved him and cared for him so much and didn't really care for me at all. She loved the sex. She made love on top. She loved that. I was so wounded I couldn't touch her when we slept. I had to keep a distance. Touching was too painful. And it was hard. You told me something that's remote resemblance. Hard to deal with how much she cared for him and how little she cared for me. And
But because you were witnessing the care towards him, and you weren't receiving that care.
and none, if she had to even take a half hour off to walk me to sign for getting a credit card, the first one, she resented it. I had a bad back because I was a mover, and she didn't believe me. It was, I mean, we get what we deserve. I knew how to give, was the way I handled the world. Do good things for people. Help them move, get food for them when they were hungry. And, but I didn't really care. I did caring things. And I didn't really love as far as touching goes. I loved when we had sex. She was kind enough after sex to hold me for a half an hour. Otherwise I would get too lonely. It was that great connection. And we did it for 8.5 years. I must have broken up with her more times than any man ever broke up with a woman. So I got my karma with Michelle. And eventually we became friends.
Oh, tell me about the time from the breaking up to the friendship.
It only took 18 years to become friends.
Okay, that's not bad. Now, during those 18 years, after you split, was there any communication? Were you communicating with the son? How did that...
I just wrote her every year or two. And finally, at the 18th year, we agreed I would come up and see her the night of Obama versus Dole running for president. I think it was Dole. And I went there by bus 5 hours.
Wow, to Vermont.
Just stayed for 3 hours, dinner, and then 3 hours of watching Obama win, and then taking a bus home. Just to be able to see her. And then we started seeing each other as friends. She wanted to get back together again. I did not want a long-distance relationship.
Wow, so 18 years later she said, let's try this again.
Yes, she wanted to.
And that's, so what happened in those 18 years with her? Did she remarry?
No, she had boyfriends for a little while. She was as hard as I was to be in relation. She loved her dog. She loved herself. She loved her son. No, it was her son, her dog, herself. She had a lot of non-love, but unlove. And we remained friends until I met Michelle. She said, if you met someone and dated them for one day over 6 months, let me know. And I said, if that happens, and you don't want to be friends in the way we are now, you have to promise me we'll talk once a year.
Oh, that's nice.
Which we did, until the very end when she said she was dying of cancer. And for 3 years, did not want to talk anymore.
Oh, why do you think that is?
Maybe, I'm guessing, because of your question, she now knew that I wasn't going to get back together with her as a partner. That's my guess. And so she's always had that hope.
Yeah. Wow, but who was the one that initially ended the relationship, the marriage?
I'm not necessarily proud of this.
Okay.
It was boundaries of steel.
Yeah.
When we got married, we were 45. And I believed in the story of Abraham and Sarah.
I like this.
When they were very old, they had this special son called laughter. And I was willing, as long as we tried, making love without contraception, which wasn't, as long as we tried at 45.
Mm-hmm.
It was not hard to try. We liked each other.
Mm-hmm.
But at 47, when I was getting more and more comfortable making love, and maybe not appropriately, I was discovering a jackhammer inside.
Mm-hmm.
We go, I'm so hustle, whoa. And maybe she got scared. Because I wasn't a caring lover. I called it making love, but it really wasn't. Because I didn't love her. I loved the feeling I had when making love. We made love every night for 6 years.
But you did love her.
I thought so.
Yeah.
But there's a difference between loving someone's face,
Yeah.
their head, their looks. I didn't even know she was beautiful. And she was.
No, tell me about that. That's interesting.
I saw in pictures she was beautiful. I was too scared.
Oh.
That's not a good reason to see someone who was intimate with me as beautiful. Never, never, never. They were always supporting cast. Someone there that I could love touching and someone who could help me. And I often got women who would help me. If I was playing Samson in Samson Agonistes, I made Delilah. I got to be a lover with Delilah, who was playing Delilah. If I was learning Hebrew, I was lover with my Hebrew teacher. I kept doing that. I just needed help. If I wanted to become a Sufi, or at least dance with the Sufis, I went out with a Sufi dancer. There's many others. If I was exploring Judaism, I went with someone who liked to explore Judaism. So not admirable, but true.
Mm-hmm.
My friend Barbara, who wanted to be a clown, we went to go to clowning workshops together, and that was part of it. But never to love someone either unconditionally or for who they were.
Mm-hmm.
It was always, what can you give me?
Mm-hmm.
And I will be helpful. Barbara, I help support.
Right.
My
right.
beloved Robbie had an orgasm every night for 6 years, every night or morning. But then the biggest problem I had was the energy I felt between me and women.
Oh, but I have a question too. The sun was there, but the sun didn't wake up with the sex?
No, it was the opposite sides of a long apartment.
Because you hear,
It was
you
far.
hear that kids are the killer of sex.
No,
and
not
parents.
at all.
Oh, isn't that funny? All right, well that's great.
So it was. She taught me. She once looked at her friends' husbands and wondered why I was so lacking. And I was poor, adult education teacher, getting fired from lots of jobs. And she realized her friends' husbands had a lot of woman power put into them and a lot of woman care. And I hadn't had that.
Oh, that is so interesting. So she was saying the confidence that these other guys had came from a lot of woman care.
Yes.
That's such a good point. And she came to this conclusion. That's so smart.
Now, she was uncaring, but
that's so smart.
she did teach me to be domestic. I was allowed to be messy only under my chair in the kitchen and in the half room I had filled with her books.
So smart. So she realized that. Did she start giving you more care?
No.
But she did come to that conclusion.
Yes, she did teach me how to be civilized, at least. I was a wild child, like one of my friends who will go unnamed.
Mm-hmm.
So I love her now.
Mm-hmm.
I think she's beautiful now, and grateful now. But we were both too unskilled to live together.
Mm-hmm.
Both of us. We once decided, we went to an Ashley Montague workshop to be loving and caring and warm. And we both said, let's be loving and caring and warm. But we did not know how. Oh, it was so far away, especially with all the hate. She had her own, but leave that out for that, all the hate I had for women. I couldn't sit with them like we're sitting now. The energy between us was depressing. It would just press me down. Because they wanted to be loved. And my heart was closed. And that interaction, closed heart, loved me. And it was just crazy. It took me till I was 80 to open my heart. Help. I hope you'll still be my friend, but help.
Wow, though, she did. That is very insightful that she said that they've had a lot of woman care.
Yes.
Wow, is that insightful?
Without giving me any help.
Wow, though. You know what, though? I think she is... I never would have come to that conclusion. But you're right, you come from like a loving mother. That makes a huge difference. Huge.
Yes. Beyond huge.
Yeah, it's true.
So I also had a loving mother at the end of my life who bought me 2 condos and a car and left me a big inheritance, which is not too much left, but a big inheritance. And I think I told you this story. This is what changed it. Because she was always a screamer and a yeller. When I left for Israel and was painting the house, my dad said, I'll give you $300 for painting the house outside, and he got a good deal. And it was high. I had to stand on apple picking ladders to paint the outside of the attic. It was very scary. And I did it. And while I'm up on that ladder, my beloved mother Evelyn would say, you missed that spot. There's not enough paint on the one right next to the window. I was so angry. I came down the ladder and poured paint thinner over her head.
Oh, over her head?
Over her head.
But did it get in her eyes?
No.
Okay.
And then went for a long walk. I was so angry. After I came back from Israel, and she was still like that, I called her Evelyn, I'm not going to talk to you for 4 years, boundaries of steel. And at the end of the 4 years, she had had a heart attack, and my father called me up and said, please call your mom now. So a few months before the end of the 4 years, I called her and invited her to Cambridge. And she comes to Cambridge. I pick her up at Logan.
From where?
From New Jersey.
What part?
East Brunswick. And I pick her up from Logan and take her to a friend of mine who was renting their house for a month. And she walks in with me, opens the refrigerator and sees nothing in the refrigerator, and starts screaming at me. What kind of son are you? There's nothing in the refrigerator. Don't you care for your mother at all? And I say, Mom, boundaries of steel, I think we now, this was after 4 years, I think we now have to talk to each other more kindly from now on. And my mother screams, You're Hitler! You're Hitler! You're trying to control how I talk! Hitler, Hitler, Hitler! And I say, Mom, I'm going to leave now. I'll leave food on the outside of the door. I'll come back tomorrow morning, expecting that from now on, we're going to talk to each other with kindness. I leave, I go home, I come back in the morning, and I see her tongue is between her teeth, Lily. And she says, Michael, I think we should talk to each other more kindly. You're right, from now on. Because she wouldn't have minded fighting. She loved bringing people into screaming fights. But she did not want to be left again for 4 years. And from then on, as my friend Muriel says, my housemate, she never saw a more devoted mother. She bought 2 condos for me, one for herself to visit, one for me to live in, a car, and became truly much more caring, really much more caring, and never screamed at me again, ever. So I have these 2 mothers in me, this frightening, abusive, hitting, sexually abusive mother, and this loving, devoted mother. And only this week, I think, when I would hear these screaming self-attacks, which are very helpful to me. Like when I feel my mother yelling and screaming, or my father, or hitting me, both of them. I eventually said, about a week ago, these are just temper tantrums. That's all you are temper tantrums. And they changed. They had always taught me something. When I hear the screams I once heard, get out of your ego. Another time I heard, put one hand over your mouth and one hand over your heart. So the screams taught me stuff that were buried inside. But eventually, this last week, they became, once I started calling them temper tantrums, they stopped. They stopped. Because there's something in my therapist's internal family systems where they ask you how old you are when you're having these chaotic attacks. And usually people think they need to be reminded they're not 5 anymore. We're not in Kansas anymore. We're 80. We're not 5. We're 83. So this has helped me finally love my domestic partner, Michelle, even more. Without all of that static coming at me. I have to remember, hand on heart to open my heart. Sometimes hand over mouth to shut up and just love. I didn't think we'd be talking about this.
And then you said, now you do love her. So what changed from, what was the transition to loving her?
When I'm hand on heart
Mm-hmm.
and fist over head, because I had a hate stream in me, and my expressive therapist said, what color is it? And I said, black, black, black. And I have a compassionate, loving stream in me, thanks to loving people like you and you. And my expressive therapist said, what color is that? And I said, red. And the red and black meet, they stream out of my crown. And they become dark red. A strong love, or a fierce love, made out of anger or hatred and love. So it's a strong love. So with one hand over my heart and a fist over my heart, I can remember to send the fierce love to you. And there's another mudra. Mudras are things you're doing with your hands now. I just woke up in the morning, early in the morning as dawn, and discovered my hands were like this, pulling them apart, the fingers apart, but they were so tight I didn't. So it's like an isometric exercise. So I pull like this, and it feels I'm opening my chest and allowing even more loves to come out. And that's helped me love Michelle and myself and everybody. And yourself?
I am learning. There's a concept I never considered before, and a lot of, I'm going to say self-help people are talking about this. They said, stop waiting and seeking the perfect love, create the perfect love.
Yum. I'm not sure I like the word perfect, but...
Oh, yeah, probably find, who says you can't just, you create, I think it's creating.
It can be better than you imagine.
Yes.
Better than perfect. Really, really, really.
Yes.
I'm surprised.
Who says you can't create? And I like, whenever I talk to you talk about creative ways of doing things.
Or co-creating, you and your friend.
Co-creating, and it's one of those things I know for years, to keep myself safe, I just followed these rules, and I have a number of friends who've done the same thing, and we look for patterns, and we say, well, when this happens, this always happens, because that's happened to me for these 5 other relationships, so therefore, this new situation can't be different. But I have this, my sister had this friend in high school, and Debbie, I'm going to call her Debbie Dingle. Her last name rhymes with that, Dingle. And Debbie just said, I'm going to make this happen.
Wow.
And what Debbie would do is she would date, and if something wouldn't work, oh well, I'm gonna create the next situation. So she met a great guy at the age of 25, And she said to my sister, look, I waited a long time to meet a really nice guy. And we were laughing about that because 25 is pretty young. But she was, she knew her value, and she was determined. And her parents said, oh, you've moved to this new city in Washington, D.C. You know what? We know our accountant, his family's in D.C., and there's a son who's around your age, so let's just connect you. And she went on a date with this handsome accountant, and things were going well in her eyes. And one day after a date, he dropped her off and he just said, you know what, I can't do this anymore. I'm just not as attracted to you as I've been to these other women in the past. And he goes to drive off, and she flags him down. She gets in the car, and she talks to him, and she said, so where are these other women? And he's like, well, they're not around anymore, so, okay, what have you learned from that? And they are happily married with beautiful children, and it's been 25 years.
Wow.
So I learned that, wait a second, my ego takes over, and people have said, don't wait to be chosen by a guy, you have input in this too. And Debbie really has said, you know what, this is the guy I've chosen, and he's got some fears, but I'm going to go talk to him, and I'm great, so he has nothing to worry about. And so I think I thought, wow, I could never do that. I want to know a person's really attracted to me. I want to know the person likes my personality. What I've learned over the years of not dating very successfully is it really takes time. And this person that might see you right away and be really drawn to you, chances are that person might be drawn to his own trauma. You might remind him of his crazy mother or something. And he's just working through his grief. And then as soon as he figures out, wait a second, I understand why I was attracted to Sarah in the first place. Now I'm a little bored. Discard, discard, discard. So yeah, and that's happened to me before. I remember my college boyfriend, very moody. I was really attracted to him, but off those moods. And he was so affectionate and attractive, but really, is that really enough? I just was getting brought down so much by his moods. And then one day I realized he wasn't over his ex. He admitted to me that he just was really struggling with this ex-girlfriend from 5 years ago, and she really hurt his ego, and his ego was bruised. And I just thought, wow, you really are projecting all of this pain on me. And I've never felt good about myself this entire time I've been with you. And you know what? I'm actually really bored. This was what was going on. I took it as, you know what? It's going to take time. And he's, this is how he's treating me is, my value. And I wasn't even thinking he was projecting his own grief from a past situation. And I should have just recognize that, I shouldn't have been treated like this. I should just do the Debbie Dingle and pursue the guy that's not as drawn to me, but is a really nice guy.
Wow.
Yeah. So I think the fears of this person might leave me, if this person's not that attracted to me, when in fact if you're pursuing good character, the person will become more and more attracted to you over time anyway. Would you say?
It's certainly true of my beloved.
Because when you mentioned that about your beloved and not even recognizing that she was attractive.
That wasn't my beloved, that was my wife.
But I do think that that's the case, because I do think people are stuck very often. They have the average person has a really tough time letting go. And this new person
That's
shows
a lovely line.
And this new
the
person
average
shows
person
up.
has
Yeah.
a lot of trouble letting go.
I am in that club, and that could be with partners, toxic family members, toxic friends, toxic jobs.
Now, was it just letting go? Or is it more challenging? It's both surrendering to what's happening,
Yeah.
even the love, and then, at least in my mind, I believe we shape it. Just like you was talking about
Debbie Dingle.
shaping. It wasn't just surrendering to it at all. She was shaping what that relationship, helping, probably a better word is helping shape, helping co-create what that was. But it certainly doesn't seem to be simply and only surrendering.
Right, right. I think what happens though is, you're right, that these, I'm gonna say a number of guys in my past, women had left them. And they weren't over the females, they weren't over the pain. And so could they have gone back and pursued and said, you know what, I'm just not over this pain, can we give this another chance? Maybe.
Yeah, these are nice hypotheticals, but I like sticking to your real examples.
But sticking to
the real examples from Debbie Dingle,
right.
you,
Right, so this
or
guy
you in
in
your
college,
past.
for example,
yes,
he was not over this situation with this ex. But once I heard the story, I just thought, oh man, like, what are the roots of this? His ego got bruised. We're going back 5 years. This is ridiculous. So I learned, I had an aha moment, a human among humans, where I thought, wow, I never want to think this little of myself again, and believe that how this guy is treating me is actually right. He's treating me this way because this is what I deserve.
wow.
And I've met people like that along the way, where I'm like, wow, this person's treating me like this. Maybe this is my karma, maybe this is what I deserve. And then someone will show up in my life and say, you know, you're a really good person, or say something that wakes me up and says, no, wait, this person's treating me terribly. Why am I getting sucked in?
So this is a long journey for you.
Yeah. It's been a long
beautiful journey. You understand it.
But there are a lot of people out there, wounded people, that they don't mean to be hurting people, but they are doing a lot of hurt.
And the challenging question, I think you mentioned it recently, how do we love ourselves?
Yeah.
How do we love ourselves? Especially when we have so much hatred
And what your
of ourselves.
Yep, and what your ex-wife said about loving, having loving woman. My mother was not a loving woman. She put me down in every opportunity she could. She yelled at me, was very nice to other people. And if someone was bullying me, she would take the side of the bully.
Oh, she's
So it's, and I would get very angry with her. But yeah,
wow.
you know what? That was so wise of your ex-wife to say that. Because everyone needs love from some source. And I've had 2 coworkers. They lost both parents at very young ages. They were raising their brothers on their own as teenagers. And I said, but they're the kindest people. And I said, where does this kindness come from? And they just said, my grandmother.
Wow.
It takes one person.
Yeah, I didn't have one.
I didn't have grandparents either. And I realized, wow, like, one person can make all the difference.
So what do we do? Certainly I grew up this way. I had a very caring father, but he was, as men in those days were, he couldn't be honest with them. What do you...
And, did your father ever stick up for you in front of your mom when your mom was being mean?
No.
Okay.
That's not good. Probably not even privately. So what do you do is the story of my life. What do you do when you don't feel love for yourself or others, really? I did love men who were in kind of teaching roles, even if they might be just one year above me.
Mm-hmm.
Teach me, show me. I studied love, philosophical works on love. I knew I didn't understand it. And what do you and people like you do in order to feel loved? If that's the real question. How can you do it if you don't have it? Where can you get it when it's not around?
I think a lot of people get dogs.
Oh, yes, that would help a lot, I think. That would help a lot. But it's not the same.
So this is funny. My a friend of mine said, you've gone all these years without love, and but you have so much love to give. That's kind of said, well, that makes me a little sad. You went all this time without love, and I said, well, a lot of people I know have been single for years and years, but they have dogs. And that person said, I'm going to just say this, I'm not going to be too popular saying this, but I think that I consider that wasted love.
Oh, wasted.
A little bit. When
yes.
there's a human that you can love.
Oh, maybe
but
you
you
can.
When you get a dog.
Maybe you can.
Yeah.
Maybe you. But I don't think that will help you totally.
No.
What
because
is?
I think you're just more drawn to animals.
Yes, I think
Yeah.
I'm getting closer now before I die. What? I think, why we talked about this.
Yeah.
Most people are afraid of the emptiness inside,
Yeah.
and it's so hard to hide from what isn't there. So I eventually learned to have the emptiness be spaciousness.
Mm-hmm.
And one of my therapists, I'm blessed, I have two. Now that I'm officially
Nice.
dying, I get a
Oh.
expressive therapist, a great woman named Mega
Wow.
Causton.
Now, is she out of a hospital?
From the Zakim Institute connected to Dana-Farber.
Wow.
So
nice.
this week I see both of them, I'm sure.
Aww.
And she's helped me see in the emptiness which became spaciousness.
Aww.
When I just hugged it, said, okay, I can be nothing. And I've been working on it for years. When I was in Israel, I was working in a chicken coop. I helped build chicken coops on this. And for 8 hours, I grinded manure into the earth of the chicken coop, because chickens like manure underfoot. Everyone's got their hobbies. And after the 8 hours, it was still late afternoon because we started early, I come out of the chicken coop and a rabbi, this was a religious kibbutz, asked me, how you doing? And this was maybe the first time in my life I felt I'm a valuable human being because I'm covered with shit. Because all that physical feeling made me feel I did a good day's work. I don't have to be witty or wise at all. I can just be. So that was just the beginning. It still took me another 50 years to begin to get that down.
Mm-hmm.
And yourself?
That's a really good question. I think a big turning point, one situation that I turn back to, I was just so depressed, and needed a change, needed a break from this area, needed to feel empowered. And I took this trip on this hippie bus tour. It was called the Green Tortoise, and you met in San Jose, Costa Rica, and then you went down to Panama. And the bus, you either camped at night or the bus folded down, and you slept on the bus, and the drivers took turns driving. It was a very inexpensive trip. And I remember needing that trip more than anything, and then meeting people on the trip that were staying to learn Spanish. And I ended up staying a total of 3 months. And it was the first time coming back, I felt like maybe I'm not so bad with languages. Maybe I can do some things on my own. I do have a terrible sense of direction, but I was able to figure it out. And I ended up, that was the first time I felt like my parents actually respected me when I came back from that trip.
Wow.
They were so upset that I just kind of, they didn't know, they thought it was a 2-week trip, but I bought a one-way ticket, which I didn't explain. And my mother said, well, as long as you're seeing a therapist, then that's good. So I was seeing a therapist up until I took the trip, and the therapist is like, your parents are so controlling. You're in your early 20s, please. Like, you can't just keep, year after year doing, like, what they want all the time. So that I think was the first time I really had given myself that gift of, you know what, I can't. Like, the will was too strong, and I really just need to take care of me, because I will lose it if I continue not doing what I want to do.
So you seem to be on an unending trip of self-improvement now.
Yes. I think I was stuck for a really long time, very discouraged and stuck.
And how did you get on this path?
I'm going to say I was encouraged by friends, and I think losing a couple friends to ALS. My one friend that I lost to ALS, I was good friends with her for 6 years. She was always encouraging me to just really give dating more of a chance, stop being so sensitive, don't be so afraid. She's like, you know what, just don't live small. You've been living small. But then she herself struggled so much with heartbreak. She couldn't. She had been married, but it had been 17 years prior, and she just kept getting her heart broken.
So I love these stories, and
yeah.
How does it? Because it seems to me now you're always looking to understand relationships and do them better.
Okay. So this whole time, when I knew her, I was, I'd look online, maybe went on some dates here or there. I would meet people that I thought I had all this stuff in common with, and they weren't willing, they weren't loyal, they weren't interested in committing, and it was just this repeating cycle over and over again. And then Heidi passed away, and I thought, I did all this, like all my weekend trips, all my trips with her. I really need to I want to do what she would want me to put myself out there. So I went to a friend's wedding. My friend was getting married for the second time at 55, and she was really well matched with this guy, and she kept saying, just have fun with it. Like, it took her like 3 years to meet someone online, but she just stuck with it. So after the wedding, going to her wedding, I just said, all right, I'm going to really put some work into the site she told me about, and see it. I met this guy. There was a lot of fighting at first, and we call it contra dating, because our backgrounds are so different, but he's so loyal, and he has such good values. And I don't think I've met someone so loyal with such good values ever. And even though the situation's complicated right now, I keep going back to the values
Yeah.
and the loyalty.
I love that.
And then I'm thinking to myself, you know what? If that's there, then you know what? Like, what else? What is there to get so worked up about?
And we need someone loyal who loves us to eventually take that love in and switch from non-love to love. And eventually, I think, I don't know this even yet. I don't know it even yet. It's a thought. I think, I don't know this. I know surrounded by loving people like you and you, eventually, even with someone dumb like me and thick and protected, I'm in the 18th year with my beloved therapist, Deborah Block. Eventually, in the 14th year with my beloved official domestic partner. We went to City Hall, became domestic partners. And it's slowly trickling in. I might be, who would have guessed, a loving person. I don't think I still have it. I don't know what it would mean to still have it.
To still have.
To still, that's not, those weren't the right words. To finally feel I'm a loving person. Because I was not. Maybe this show will help. Maybe this confession with Sarah might help. I think it feels like something breaking through. It's like the sun coming up in the morning, maybe. What else breaks through?
Energy. Lightning.
Lightning can break through. This feels more almost like, I don't know, air, heart, maybe heart, and the heart energy. Because there's so much in the core that is not loving. But ultimately, we have a heart, literally. So maybe breaking through is, I told a friend of mine that in the Jewish mystical tradition, Kabbalah, it says there are 365 shells around our true nature. And she said, only 365? So maybe there's so much protecting us. But eventually, maybe with shows like this with you, especially with you, it can break through the shells, or at least some of them, maybe all of them. And we can simply be a loving child, a loving baby, a loving newborn, even if we're over 50. Isn't your birthday this week?
My birthday was Monday.
Monday, this is the new birthday. The loving Sarah. The loving Sarah. Wow, maybe, I hope I'm feeling it myself. Wow, this is how we started. Well, it's a little too early. We have 3.5 minutes, unless we want to do this. No, too close.
We can do an exercise on self-love.
Yes, what you tell us. What will it be?
I think maybe we'll start with the nonviolent communication where you feel you sit with yourself and feel, you give yourself self-compassion.
Wow. Yes.
And you sit with that self-compassion. So imagine someone just very upset with you and they just yelled at you what they think is right and they're telling you wrong and you just need a breath. And you're just going to breathe in and out. Breathe in through your nose. Count to 3. Breathe out through your mouth. Count to 5. And you're just going to stay holding, hands crossed, holding your heart. And you're going to do this 10 more times. And it's going to bring your sympathetic nervous system.
Can I say something?
Down. Please.
I'm feeling, I've started feeling, that the basic energy of our world and the universe, as Christians say, is love.
Yes, I love that. I love that.
I think it came from Jesus after the Father was getting him tortured and flogged and crucified. And he was still able to say, "Forgive them, for they know not what they're doing." And to love his Father in the sky, in spite of all the torture and pain. And that helped create God to be a loving God. Because he was having his struggles just like us.